Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Vocast. I'm your host, Drew. We're doing yet another reaction and breakdown today. Be to the first Pentatonix cover on this channel. It's going to be to Hallelujah. We're staying in the Christmas spirit somewhat with the New Year's around the corner. So, this is a wildly popular a cappella cover, and this will not be my first time reaction to it, but I love it. So, I'm excited to do this one for you guys today. I may or may not cry in this one again. I've cried every other time I've ever heard it. So, but yeah, let's get our hands dirty and jump right into this one. I'm excited. All right, folks. So we are getting into the video. So as a reminder, this first portion is going to be my reaction without pausing the video whatsoever, and then after that, we'll give you a brief break, and then there will be a analysis and breakdown portion where there will be a lot of starting and stopping. So just a heads up. And without further ado, we are going to jump into this beautiful arrangement and performance of Hallelujah by Pentatonix. Make sure it's turned up in my ears.
I've heard there was a secret chord that David played and it pleased the Lord. But you don't really care for music, do you? Well, it goes like this: the fourth, the fifth, the minor fall, the major lift, the baffled king composing hallelujah. Hallelujah, hallelujah.
This is just
Hallelujah.
This is just absolutely masterfully arranged and performed.
Well, your faith was strong, but you needed proof. You saw her bathing on the roof, her beauty in the moonlight overthrew you. She tied
Those
you
BGVs.
to the kitchen chair. She broke your throne and she cut your hair, and from your lips she drew the hallelujah. Hallelujah, 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 hallelujah.
I mean, how else do you describe this? You just sit here and you bask in the beauty of this. Bring it, Kirsty. Come on. Awesome. Some serious displays of singing talent in this. Mitch. He's got a wonderful chest, head voice mix, and head voice. It's ridiculous.
And it's not a cry that you hear tonight. It's not somebody
Harmonic soup.
seeing the light. It's a chord and it's a broken hallelujah. 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 Hallelujah.
Crazy high belting here. Buttery smooth from the start to finish, folks. And what a remarkable piece of a cappella history in this right here. It's ridiculous. That's my favorite word to use in these reactions whenever I see a singer that is this, like singers that are this talented. And it's just baffling to me. Like, how the human voice can achieve this kind of sound. It's crazy. So we're getting ready to move on to the analysis and breakdown portion, and then, like I said, there'll be a lot of starting and stopping in that. So I encourage you to stick around if you want to learn more about this piece and learn more about music in general. So we'll see you guys over there in just a second. All right, folks. So we are now down to the analysis and breakdown portion. And we're going to start from the beginning. There's no telling how long this one's going to be, since this is a somewhat complicated piece, and I like to break down as much as I can and draw your attention to as much as I can. So we're going to dive in from the beginning again, and we'll start breaking this down as much as we can. So
I've heard there was a secret chord that David played and it pleased the Lord.
So to start off the piece, Scott right here is using a light mechanism. He's using a breathy tone, but he's doing that on purpose to lead the piece in very easily. And he's intentionally adding a little bit of air into his tone. He's intentionally making his vocal fold closure not as complete as you would normally expect from the kind of sound a typical singer will have, like in a powerful part of a song. But he's doing this, like I said, to lead this into the piece very subtly, very easily, very quietly. And it's one of those slower moving pieces, one of those more legato style pieces. And you don't want to like go too crazy at the beginning, so you want to lead it in pretty easily. Scott's doing that very well. And yeah, so we'll continue on here. Just listen for the little bit of air behind his tone as we go forward.
But you don't really care for music, do you?
There's a 2-part harmony in the background here. I heard there was a secret chord that David played, it pleased the Lord. So I believe we're in B flat major. I want to listen again real quick, make sure.
There's a secret chord that David played and it pleased the Lord. But you don't really care for music, do you? Well, it goes like this: the fourth, the fifth, the minor fall, the major lift, the baffled king composing hallelujah.
No, we're not in we're not in B flat major. We're in E flat. We are in E flat major for this key, for the key of this song.
Hallelujah.
That was some extremely clean bass and extremely clean harmonies in the background here. So I'm going to back us up a little bit and I'll show you what I'm talking about. So the 2-part harmony with Kirsty and Mitch. They're doing the 2-part background harmony here.
Really care for music, do you?
Pitches weren't exactly right, but that's the rhythm that they're doing in the background while Scott carries the lead.
Well, it goes like...
And then you've got Avi kicking in with a little bit of bass in that B flat too.
This, the fourth, the fifth, the minor five.
And he's going up into the top of the second, into the third octave. Yeah, the third octave there. And he's got a really beautiful tone in his second octave and third octave in particular. Of course, we know that he's a pretty strong bass singer, but people sleep on his abilities to sing in the high second, third, and fourth octaves. He's got a beautiful, beautiful voice, and it's got a lot of color to it. And whenever you hear Avi sing, you hear all kinds of colors. He's got a dark-ish tone, but it's not very like it gets bright as it gets higher, like when most people's voices, but Avi's voice is very round, smooth, and I mean, especially when he gets into his low range, it's got like a sine feel to it. It's very warm. He's got a very warm voice as a whole when he sings, and it works perfect for this piece, considering the fact that you want a little bit of warmth in a slower piece like this. It fits. So, where are the other harmonies going here? Hang on.
It goes like this, the fourth, the fifth, the minor five.
So you can tell he's not going very low here, and just going with the flow of the music. So he's just moving along with the music, not going too high, not going too low, very balanced, just focused on the flow of the music with the bass.
The major lived, the barefoot king composed.
And Kevin Olalosa, or however you say his last name, or Kevin O, I guess we can just call him that. He's actually singing in this also. He does do some beatboxing and some body percussion in this. I'm not 100% sure about the beatboxing. We can fact check that. But I know for a fact he sings in this, and I know for a fact he does body percussion in this. So, and Kevin's got a nice voice too, by the way, folks. If y'all have not heard him sing, Kevin's got a really nice voice. So we'll back up. Kirsty and Mitch are still doing the two-part harmony in the back.
The major lived, the barefoot king composing. Hallelujah, hallelujah.
And that's your typical E-flat major chord. So, and then you've got people up the octave, and you've got Avi down the octave on the E-flat 2 there. Excuse me. So that note there, in combo with the rest of the chords, of course, people being up the octave, it sounds beautiful. The E-flat, or an E-flat major chord, is a very beautiful chord. It's a somewhat basic chord in the context of complicated music, but it's still a really beautiful chord. You don't have to, at the end of the day in music, you don't have to have complicated arrangements or complicated chords for them to be pretty, you know?
Hallelujah.
And that chord is also some semblance of an E-flat chord.
Hallelujah.
E-flat major again.
Hallelujah.
Ooh, there's some waves in here. What note was causing that? There was an added note in there.
Hallelujah.
Did you hear that wave, folks? That was pretty cool. So, in this little section, this is really cool. So, you've got Avi on the bass currently doing the dum da da dum da da dum da da dum. So that is laying the foundation for the rest of them to sing, and this is also making it so that way the other background parts, Kirsty, Mitch, and Scott, to do the offbeat singing. So with the ha's that you're hearing here, ha. So Avi's doing da da dum da da dum. I don't remember exactly what like chords they're doing here. I'd love to call it out, but I would spend several minutes trying to figure it out. So I'm not going to for the sake of time, but they are jumping to a chord that's not necessarily within the context of the key, but it adds a little bit of musical flair. It's really nice. So you'll see what I'm talking about here in a second. Da, da, dum.
Well, your faith was strong, but you needed proof. You saw her bathing on the roof. Her beauty.
I also forgot to call attention to the fact that Scott is actually carrying the bass line while Avi is singing the lead here. So we'll listen to Avi carry the lead here again.
Well, your faith was strong, but you needed proof. You saw her bathing on the roof.
So it almost sounds like there's percussion in this little section, but there's actually not. And I'll tell you why it feels like there isn't, but there's not. So what's happening is that there's some bell tones going on in the background. And for those that don't know, bell tones are exactly what they sound like. They are notes being sung or played that are intended to create the effect and sound of a bell being struck. So in a vocal context, a bell tone is typically sung on a do vowel. So doom or do. So typically bell tones are characterized by an onset of sound followed by a very rapid decline in the volume of the sound. Typically, that's more like an articulation. So do. So like you feel how much punch that the do has at the very beginning. Do. It's supposed to feel like a bell. Boom. So anyway, that's why it feels like there's percussion, but there's not actually, because in a sense, I guess you could say a bell tone somewhat is percussion, considering it's imitating the striking of a bell. And you could argue that that's percussion, but it gives it the feel that there is percussion when there's actually not. So it still somewhat helps with keeping time. So one of them is doing the do's in the background, which the bell tones, which allows them to stay in time easier. It may be Kevin. I'm not 100% sure, but it may be Kevin O who's doing this, since he's already their vocal percussionist. So
Her beauty in the moonlight overthrew you. She tied you to the kitchen chair. She broke your throat and she cut your hair.
And Avi goes pretty well in the context of the singing that he did for Pentatonix. It goes fairly high here. He goes into the fourth octave cleanly, very, very cleanly in this. And for being a bass singer, he's got a very, very solid fourth octave. He's got good vocal fold closure up there. It's very clean. It's a very bright sound considering the warmth of his tone whenever he sings in his lows. So I'll back it up 5 seconds. You'll see what I'm talking about.
Kitchen chair, she broke your throat and she cut your hair, and from your lips she drew the hallelujah.
So he had a little bit of a vocal effect there. It almost sounds like a yodel in a way. So what's happening there is that he's transitioning between the registers in his chest range. Correct me if I'm wrong, music scholars and such, but I believe that's what causes that. If you try to make that transition too quickly, you will literally sound like your voice is cracking. So if you try to make a transition within your chest voice too quickly, you'll transition to like that belt range. It'll make that squeaky, cracky feel. So to go, ha, ha. So if you do that too quickly, then it'll do that. But that was actually intentional in this part here to add a little bit of emotion. And whenever you add those little voice cracks, it gives the listener a sense, or it gives the listener that your performers and singers have a sense of passion with what they're singing. So good little twist or little touch there.
Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah.
So did you notice what I was talking about with Avi's tone here? It's very bright considering how warm and dark his timbre usually is whenever he's singing in his low range. Man is crazy talented, and it's no wonder that he's making his own music now. He's doing a really good job. I mean, you can tell his voice is just, it's like velvet.
Hallelujah.
Here we come with some more perk. So Kevin's doing some body perk here, and he's pretty much exactly making the exact same movements as he is in the video for the sound effects. So it's, and whenever you tap your shirt or tap your chest with a shirt or coat on, or even with gloves like he's doing here, then you'll get that effect. So nice little perk touch there, musical contrast. I harp on musical contrast a lot, but it's so important because if you keep the sections of music exactly the same, then your listeners will lose interest. So they didn't have pretty much any perk whatsoever up until this point. So, and we're right at 2 minutes into the song so far. So everything else still feels the same while adding a little bit of perk. And at this point, we're starting to build intensity, especially with the volume and such, because we've got Kirsty coming in with a more full, bright tone, and she's got pretty much complete full vocal fold closure here, and she's also brought in some volume with her singing in this lead part. Not that anyone else didn't, but right here, it starts to pick up intensity with the percussion that Kevin is doing, and also with the volume and closure that Kirsty brings in her lead part here. And also the background parts have changed as well. So that goes from, instead of the dum da da dum and the ha's and the dooms and the ha's, they've gone to da 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 da. They've all gone to sustaining chords, and I believe they're on a 3 or 4 part harmony. I'm not 100% sure if Kevin actually sang from this point on. He may have been focused on body perk and vocal perk, but there's at minimum a 3 part harmony in the background. See, they're doing the minimum 3 part harmonies, and they're moving like water in a river. They feel intensity a lot. And can we talk about Kirsty's voice for a second? Hello. So it sounds like she's belting, but she's not really belting that much. I mean, and it takes a really talented singer. I've had this thing like minimized the entire time. My bad. It's hard to really give it a powerful feel. In my opinion, at least, it's hard to make a vocal part sound like it's powerful without belting. And the fact there are people out there that can add some serious power and weight to their vocals without full out belting, it takes talent, and it takes talent, yes, but it takes a lot of vocal control and a lot of vocal maturity. You really have to know your warm-ups, you have to know your routines, you have to know where your voice sits, you have to know how your voice is sitting that day when you record. I mean, you have to know where to land on these notes to give it that strong mixed feel where it has the power of someone belting, but you're not actually belting. And you would really know if she was belting, but she's actually not. She's close, but she's not. And she's found that right balance within her voice to really up the intensity and power and weight in the way she's singing, but she's not belting. And I've been saying the word belting a lot, but essentially belting is, it's kind of like Peter said, or it's kind of like how he described opera music in the podcast that we did before. It's basically like healthy yelling. And in a way, that's kind of what belting is too. It's healthy yelling. Belting is ultimately like just about as loud as you can get with your voice, with it still sounding good and without it breaking. So she's keeping this, like, she's very much singing, but she's not belting. She's literally like airy, just singing, and then you've got just all out belting, and then she's like right here in the middle, and it's just very balanced.
And I've seen your flag on the marble arch, and love is not a victory march. It's a cold and it's a broken hallelujah.
So I was telling y'all about that register change. If you try to move within your vocal register too fast to like the belting part of your chest range, then typically you'll end up with that voice crack in the middle, or what sounds like a voice crack. And this one was also intentional that Kirsty did. It's hallelujah. You know, that was not the correct note for the song, but hallelujah. I mean, you add that voice crack in there, gives it some more passion, some more flair into the vocal part she's singing. So it's nice.
It's a broken hallelujah. Hallelujah.
That was a really cool little walk down that Kirsty did there too in her pitch. It was a bit of a cascade. So listen to it. She riffs down. The background parts are all over the place, and it's hard to notice because they are so quiet. They're only there to fill out the sound, and they're not really trying to stand out. And I would love to like try to show you everything that's going on in the background part, but with the volume of everything else going on, it would be very difficult. So, but man, it's beautiful. There's a cool little suspension there. So they held this really powerful note, and nobody was singing lower than an F3 there. Avi was on the F3, and then everyone else was higher than that. So, and then the perk just, it goes poof, and it stops for this little portion that Mitch is getting ready to carry the lead on.
Maybe there's a God above.
And before we let him sing a little bit more, I will draw your attention to this. It's a bit of a power and silence in music, and there wasn't total silence in this particular section here, but when you have a section that has almost complete silence or complete silence very, very briefly like that, it makes your audience want more, what's consciously or subconsciously, because it's like the music cuts out almost completely or completely, and then you're just like they're waiting for the next thing to happen, you know. And that's pretty much what happened there. They had this big, huge, loud, sustained chord, and then he goes, yeah. They all fade away. Perk fades away, and then Mitch carries a lead part without any reference notes or anything, or anyone else singing with him, and it's very, very, very clean transition to the next part of this.
But all I've ever learned from love,
And then you've got the reference here that he carried like a little section where no one else sang.
who outdrew you. And it's not a cry.
That chord is beautiful. I'd love to stop and break it down, but I don't have a lot of time to do so. It's I believe it's some form or some semblance of a B flat chord with perhaps like an added seventh. I'm not 100% sure. We'll move on, but
And it's not a cry that you hear tonight.
belt it,
Not
Mitch.
somebody who's seen the light.
Come on.
It's a chord and it's a broken hallelujah.
So I've had some people ask me, is Mitch really that high of a singer? And yes and no. Mitch is very definitely a tenor, and there's no doubt about that. But for these notes here, he starts using a chest head voice slash full head voice. I'm sorry, he started using a chest head voice mix, and it almost sounded like he went into pure head voice for a little bit of it, but I'll show you the transition he makes between chest and head voice. But I noticed it, but most of you most likely will not. And because Mitch is just that good in his head voice and chest head voice mix, it's ridiculous. So I'll show you the transition, and you may not even notice it, but I'll show you where it's at. So I'll point out to the point to where he stops using chest and head voice. So I'll be like, chest voice, boom, divider, then head voice. So I'll back up again. He said chest here. Chest. 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 Head voice. So when I had said head voice, he switched over to a chest head voice mix, and there was a little bit of a timbre change, but it was very, very subtle. But to find a male that can still sing this high, he's very definitely a tenor. And if you ask me, Mitch is the quintessential tenor. He's got beautiful highs, good middle range, fourth octave. He's just He's got a very, very solid voice. Also, Power of Silence. The music cut out here for a little bit of a second. It's a little bit of a second. What kind of phrase is that? A little more body perk from Kevin. And musical contrast, volume contrast. The intensity is moving back and forth. It did slowly build until this point. Then the music cut out a little bit ago, and then they started singing again. Mitch was increasing in volume and intensity. Music cut out again just for a second, and then it came back down a little, and it's getting ready to build back up to another wall of sound. Moving like a wave on a calm beach. There is belt city going on in this section here. Scott's belting in the fourth octave. Mitch will be belting in the top of the fourth octave, probably also the fifth octave. I'm not 100% sure if Avi's going to be. Kevin's pretty busy with body perk. Scott is definitely belting here. Mitch is also belting. There's a belt from Kirsty. So everything else cuts out right here too. And there was just a massive wall of sound. Everybody at some point belts in this. And at least as far as I can tell. And Avi's just holding a nice bass background while everyone else is doing their thing. Kirsty belts, Scott belts, Mitch belts. They all do it in the fourth and fifth octaves. I don't think Kirsty goes into the sixth octave unless she goes into the low sixth. But beautiful. It's like I said, healthy yelling. If you want to hit that high, you really have to switch into like a belting part or a belting register or sub-register of your chest register in order to really get that high and it sound that good without it sounding weak. And then it's coming back down in intensity. You notice they have more warm and airy, breathy tones now and timbres and such, and they've adjusted that to really hone in on the feel of the piece, really moving in and out. And at this point, we're coming to the close of the song, and it's going, and it'll come to a point. But there's a really nice change in timbre, a nice change in volume, and these Pentatonix is the master of intensity, if you ask me. They build really good intensity in music. They'll bring a wall of sound and then they'll bring it back down to a point, and they do it very, very well. And a good old B flat major chord here. That was insane. Music or harmony soup, ear candy, and it was just a beautiful arrangement performance all the way around. Little bass thing for you there. Avi does a B flat 1 chest here, and it's a pretty rich, or I wouldn't say it's super rich. I'd say it's more of a warm sine B flat 1. It's more like whoa, down the octave, and it's very much got a similar tone to what I just sang. Obviously. Sorry about that, folks. I hit my recording limit on my new camera. But what I was saying was, if you're going to hit a low note at the end for a bass, you don't want to do it in a super rich, resonant, loud tone, because A, the piece is at the end already. B, the volume's already toned down. C, a rich, resonant timbre just would not match the rest of the feel of the song. Everyone else is on vowels. They're on breathy timbres, and they're on decreased volume, and you really want to match that if you're going to do a low note. So a warm sine feel to that last B flat 1 is very appropriate. So we still get a good taste of what Avi's range is without him per se showing it off in a punch you in your face way. So yeah, this is one of the most highly requested ones I've been asked to cover, and we have officially covered it now. So anyway, yeah, this has been the Drew on the Vocast. I appreciate you guys sticking around and watching, and we will see you in the next one. Take care of yourselves. Bye.